The rumor did not start in a grand hall or a military office. It began quietly, almost like a whisper that someone dropped by accident. One Imperial technician claimed he had overheard something unusual from the upper council. Earth was not sending generals to the Empire's capital. Instead, they were sending people who looked like soldiers, but behaved in a way no normal soldier would. He described them as too calm, too steady, almost like they were wearing human shapes, but thinking differently inside. He exaggerated a little when he told the story, as people do, but the listeners added their own details, and soon the story no longer resembled the truth. Within a single day, the rumor mutated into something dramatic. Workers in the docking stations repeated it while loading cargo. Security teams discussed it in low tones during lunch breaks. Even merchants in the streets talked about it with a mix of fear and excitement. By nightfall, the whisper had turned into a storm. Earth didn't send generals. They sent dangerous people dressed like soldiers. Some even used harsher words, calling them unstable or unpredictable, though no one had actually seen them yet. The Empire had always believed Earth was a quiet world, a small planet at the far end of the star maps, a place full of thinkers, peaceful people, scientists, families, and simple living. When the Empire expanded into that region of space, they had expected Earth to respond with hesitation, or maybe nervous diplomacy. Instead, the message from Earth was clear and confident. They would send a special unit for discussions. This alone created confusion in the Empire's council chambers. The Empire had its own culture of strength. They believed in displaying loud confidence, sharp words, and strong posture. Diplomacy, for them, was a performance. But Earth's message was simple, without any dramatic lines or aggressive phrases. It felt too calm, too controlled. To some, that calmness looked like arrogance. To others, it looked like a sign that Earth had something hidden behind the quiet tone out. So when it was said that Earth was not sending generals, the Imperial leaders felt insulted. They assumed Earth did not take them seriously. And when the rumor shifted again, suggesting the people arriving were not generals, but something far more unpredictable, Empire's fears took over. Soldiers in the Empire's military bases began practicing more intensely. Officers argued in strategy rooms. Some wondered if Earth had developed some new kind of training, a training that made humans emotionless or immune to fear. One officer said he heard that Earth's representatives didn't flinch, didn't blink too often, and didn't react to threats at all. These comments spread like sparks in a dry field, each spark starting a new small fire of imagination. Not in reality. The truth was simple. Earth had chosen a small group of peacekeeping veterans, people who had survived past crises, rebuilt themselves through discipline and therapy, and learned to remain calm even in difficult moments. They were not unstable. They were not dangerous. They were simply people who had seen struggle and learned to stay steady. But none of this truth had reached the Empire. All they heard was the exaggerated rumor, and that was enough to create tension across the capital. The day before the Earth unit arrived, the Empire's main plaza buzzed with nervous energy. Shopkeepers closed early, unsure if something dramatic would happen. Children were pulled inside by worried parents. Groups of Imperial guards stood at every corner, trying to look brave even though many of them were secretly anxious. Some talked about legends from old wars, comparing Earth's team to mysterious fighters from ancient stories. These comparisons had no real connection, but fear makes people link anything that sounds dramatic. One Imperial advisor tried to calm the council by suggesting the rumors were exaggerated. He said Earth had always been diplomatic, that humans were emotional beings, and that the idea of emotionless psycho-like fighters made no logical sense. But the council was already influenced by fear. Fear has a way of covering logic like a shadow. and a shadow is always larger than the object that casts it. When night came, the sky above the capital glowed softly with neon lights. The Empire's city was known for its floating towers, its bright walkways, and its constant movement. But that night felt different. The air carried tension, as if everyone was waiting for something unexpected. It wasn't the calm before a storm. It was a calm filled with questions no one could answer. Docking Station 9, where Earth's unit was expected to land, was under strict security. Officers stood in a tight formation, hands clasped behind their backs, trying to hide the unease on their faces. Some whispered to each other about what they might see when the ship doors opened. One officer imagined humans with cold eyes and stiff movements. Another imagined tall figures with no emotions. Someone else believed they might wear unusual armor or carry secret weapons. Each imagination was more dramatic than the last. A young Imperial guard, new to the job, stood near the railing and listened to the older guards telling stories. He felt his heart beat faster with every passing rumor. He had never met anyone from Earth. He didn't even know what humans looked like up close. In his mind, they became larger than life, something beyond normal. He was not scared of humans. He was scared of the unknown. Meanwhile, Earth's representative ship was traveling quietly through space, unaware of the storm of rumors waiting for them. Inside the ship, the Earth team sat together in calm silence. They were not dangerous. They were not emotionless. They were simply focused. Their leaders had trained them to stay steady, breathe slowly, observe before reacting, and listen before speaking. They had experienced difficult times before, so fear did not shake them easily. One member of the team looked out the window at the stars. He felt a little nervous, but he hid it well behind controlled breathing. Another member practiced slow hand movements taught during therapy sessions, movements that helped reduce stress. Their leader reviewed notes quietly, making sure the mission plan was clear. Establish trust, open communication, prevent conflict. None of them knew the Empire was terrified of them. As their ship approached, the Empire prepared for their arrival with mixed feelings: fear, curiosity, and a touch of embarrassment. The Council hoped the rumors were wrong. The military hoped the rumors were right, but manageable. The citizens simply wanted to witness something unusual, even if they were too nervous to stand too close. Moments before landing, a final rumor raced through the capital like a fast-moving breeze. Earth's team walks without making sound. This was completely untrue, but people repeated it anyway, as if the rumor itself gave them something exciting to hold on to. The landing platform filled with reporters, guards, advisors, and observers. The Empire's highest-ranking representative stood near the front, trying to look confident. But even he felt uneasy. He wondered what kind of people Earth had sent. He wondered if they had made a mistake by listening to rumors. He also wondered, quietly, if Earth was stronger than they had thought. The ship descended slowly, the engines humming softly. Everyone held their breath. The crowd leaned forward slightly. No one blinked for a moment. And in that quiet second, the entire Empire realized how deeply the rumors had affected them. When the ship doors finally opened, there was no dramatic music, no threatening posture, no aggressive march. The Earth unit walked out in a calm, steady line. They moved with discipline, but not coldness. Their eyes were alert, but not hostile. Their steps were smooth, but not unnatural. Yet the Empire, influenced by days of exaggerated stories, interpreted their calm as something eerie. Many thought, "This is it. These are the people we were warned about." And though the Earth team had no intention of looking intimidating, their quiet confidence appeared mysterious, and even frightening to those who had already convinced themselves that Earth had sent unpredictable figures. The Empire stood shocked. because the Earth unit looked dangerous, but because they looked nothing like the wild images painted by the rumors. And sometimes, the simplest truth is the most surprising thing of all. The Earth unit stepped off the ship with quiet steps, not rushing, not slowing down too much, just moving in a steady line as if they had rehearsed this moment 100 times. But the truth was, they hadn't practiced anything for show. This was just how they moved, calm, focused, controlled. It was their normal. But to the Empire's people, who had already built 1,000 dramatic stories in their minds, this calmness looked unnatural. The landing platform was huge, surrounded by tall silver towers that reflected light like mirrors. Hundreds of eyes watched the Earth team take their first steps on Imperial ground. Some people leaned forward. Others stepped back nervously. A few held their breath without even realizing it. It felt like the whole plaza was balancing on a thin string of silence that could snap at any moment. The Empire's representative, dressed in a formal dark uniform, stepped forward. He cleared his throat, hoping no one noticed the slight tremble in his voice. He had prepared a welcoming speech, but the moment he saw the Earth team, he forgot every word. Not because they looked frightening, but because their presence was different from what he'd imagined. He had expected loud soldiers or dramatic leaders. Instead, he saw humans who looked surprisingly ordinary, but carried themselves with unusual steadiness. The leader of the Earth team stopped at the front and gave a simple nod. He didn't smile too widely, didn't stretch his hand forward too quickly. Just a respectful, calm nod. The Empire's representative tried to return it, but his movements were a bit stiff. The tension in the air was thick enough to feel in the chest. Behind the Earth leader, the rest of the team stood quietly. One observed the surroundings carefully, noting the guards, the cameras, the crowd. Another took slow breaths, grounding themselves like they had been trained in therapy sessions back home. A third member adjusted the wristband on their uniform, a small habit they did to stay relaxed. None of these actions were strange to them, but to the Empire's onlookers, everything looked intentional, maybe even strategic. A soft mechanical sound echoed across the platform as drones hovered above, capturing every angle. Reporters whispered to one another, unsure if they should speak loudly or stay quiet. Many had prepared dramatic questions, expecting Earth's team to behave in extreme ways. But the simple way they stood confused almost everyone. Finally, the Empire's representative gathered enough confidence to speak. "We welcome you to our capital." His voice echoed through the speakers, slightly shaky at first, but steadying toward the end. The Earth leader nodded again, this time with a gentle expression, the kind that showed respect without forcing anything. He replied with a soft, "Thank you," his tone steady. That one simple moment surprised the crowd. Some people had expected Earth's representatives to speak in strange tones or act aggressively. Instead, the Earth leader sounded completely normal. Too normal, some thought, like a calm storm that hid power behind quietness. After the short greeting, the Earth team was guided toward the main hall. Imperial guards walked along both sides, keeping their posture rigid. The guards didn't know whether to look directly at the Earth team or avoid eye contact. A few glanced sideways, trying to study them without being obvious. The Earth team noticed the nervousness. They felt the pressure in the air. But because they were trained to stay centered, they only exchanged small, understanding glances with each other. They didn't blame the guards or the people around them. They knew misunderstandings could make simple things complicated. They had come to clear those misunderstandings, not add to them. Not as they walked through the city. More citizens gathered along the walkways. People whispered things like, "They move so quietly. Why don't they talk much? Are they studying us? Do they feel fear?" Someone even said, "Their faces look too calm." Maybe that's how dangerous people look before they act. The Earth team pretended not to hear any of it, though the words weren't hard to catch. But they had been trained to stay neutral, especially in places where people might judge them quickly. Their therapists back on Earth had taught them how to handle pressure without reacting emotionally. But here, that same emotional control was being misread as something darker. The halls they entered were wide and bright, decorated with long banners showing the Empire's history. The lights reflected off polished floors, creating soft patterns beneath their feet. The Earth team took in the details quietly, appreciating the architecture. One member even whispered, "This place is beautiful," but the guard walking beside them misheard it as a coded message and stiffened immediately. When they reached the meeting chamber, the Empire's council members were already seated. The council had expected Earth soldiers to be aggressive, so many of them had armored plates built into their clothing. Their chairs were arranged in a wide circle, giving the whole room a sense of formality. The Earth team entered calmly. They didn't rush or hesitate. They stood at the center, waiting politely for instructions. The silence in the room stretched longer than expected. The council members exchanged glances, unsure how to start. Finally, one of the council members spoke. "We appreciate your presence." It wasn't much, but it was enough to begin. The Earth leader stepped forward slightly and spoke in a clear, gentle voice. He explained that Earth valued peace, cooperation, and understanding. He talked about unity, shared futures, and the importance of communication. His words were simple, honest, and warm. But something strange happened in the room. The council listened. But they listened through the filter of their fear. They didn't hear a peaceful tone. They heard a calmness that felt too controlled, too measured. To them, it sounded like someone speaking while hiding something behind their quiet voice. One council member whispered to another, "Why is his voice so even? Normal people sound more emotional." Another murmured, "It's like he practiced." Those words with no feeling. But the truth was, the Earth leader wasn't hiding anything. He had simply learned to speak without letting anxiety twist his voice. He had gone through years of emotional training after a difficult past. Those techniques helped him appear collected, not because he was dangerous, but because he had healed. One of the Earth team members noticed the council's discomfort. She looked around slowly, trying to understand what made them so uneasy. She realized it wasn't the words, they were simple and kind. It wasn't their actions, they hadn't done anything strange. It was the fear already planted in the Empire's mind, long before the Earth team arrived. Outside the chamber, citizens watched the meeting on giant screens. Some whispered about Earth's calmness. Others said the unit must have undergone strange training. A few believed the rumors completely and imagined the Earth team had no feelings at all. Inside, the Empire's representative tried to lighten the mood by offering refreshments. The Earth team accepted politely, but their calm gestures, lifting a cup, nodding, tasting the drink, were again interpreted as rehearsed or unnatural. Every natural action turned into something suspicious because the Empire was looking at them through a lens of false stories. Still, the Earth team didn't lose patience. They spoke with respect, answered questions simply, and avoided tense topics. Their mission was clear: build trust, not fear. The Empire, however, struggled to let go of the rumors. When the meeting ended, the Earth team was guided to their accommodation. In the palace complex, they walked through long corridors, passing guards who stared at them, as if expecting sudden strange behavior. The Earth team didn't take it personally. They knew fear could make people act in unusual ways. Their rooms were elegant and spacious, with glowing walls and floating shelves. As they settled in, they finally let their guard down a little. One member stretched their arms, tired from the long day. Another sat on the soft couch and closed their eyes. Their leader rubbed his temples gently, feeling the weight of the misunderstanding. Pressing down on him, he knew the next few days would be even more challenging. The Empire did not see them as normal humans. They saw them as mysterious figures who might be unpredictable. Breaking that idea would take time. Outside their room, a few guards whispered again. They didn't react to anything today. They don't show fear, anger, joy, nothing. What kind of training makes people like that? But the truth was simple. They did feel things. They just didn't express emotions the way the Empire expected. The Empire assumed silence meant danger. But for the Earth team, silence meant peace. And that misunderstanding was slowly building into something bigger, something that would shape everything that happened next. The morning after the first meeting began with a strange, heavy feeling across the Empire's capital. People woke up earlier than usual, eager to hear new rumors about the visitors from Earth. Vendors setting up their stalls whispered to each other about what they thought they saw on the screens last night. Some said the Earth team didn't blink the entire meeting. Others said their faces stayed still, like carved stone. A few even claimed they had some secret ability to read minds just by looking at someone. None of it was true, but when fear mixes with imagination, logic becomes very small and very quiet. Inside the palace, the Earth team started their day with simple routines: stretching, breathing exercises, sipping warm tea, checking mission notes. These were normal habits for them. But a pair of Imperial guards watching from the hallway misread everything. One guard whispered, "They're preparing for something. Look how calm they are." The other replied, "I told you, they don't. Act like regular people. Normal humans make noise, talk, complain. These ones do everything in silence." Again, nothing was wrong with what the Earth team was doing. But the Empire was so used to people showing emotion loudly that quietness felt unnatural. As the sun rose and the palace lights adjusted to the daylight cycle, the Earth team stepped out of their rooms. Their leader thanked the guards with a polite nod, but even this confused the guards. The nod seemed too gentle, too controlled. They couldn't understand that someone could be respectful without being dramatic. The team walked toward the large hall where the second meeting would take place. As they walked, they talked quietly among themselves, not about strategy or secrets, but about their hopes for the day. "I hope they understand us better today," one member said softly. "I hope the rumors calm down," another added. "We just need to stay patient," their leader replied. "Fear doesn't leave quickly." When they entered the meeting room, several council members were already seated. Some looked tired, others looked tense, and a few looked curious, as if they were trying to figure out the truth behind the rumors. But before the meeting even began, small misunderstandings started again. One council member noticed how the Earth team stood with straight posture and whispered to her colleague, "Look, they're ready for confrontation." But in reality, the Earth team simply stood the way they always did, balanced and relaxed, a posture they had learned from physiotherapists to help manage stress. The next misunderstanding happened when the Earth team exchanged calm glances with each other. They did it to reassure one another, as they had often done during difficult missions on Earth. But to the Empire's council, it looked like secret communication. A council member murmured, "They're signaling something." "Did you see that?" Another nodded. "It's like they can talk without words." But again, it was simply human connection being misread as something mysterious. Once everyone settled down, the meeting began. The Empire's representative cleared his throat and started with a firm question. "We observed your behavior yesterday. Many of our citizens feel uneasy. Why do your people act with such restraint?" The Earth leader took a soft breath before answering. "We are trained to stay calm in stressful situations. It helps us think clearly and avoid misunderstandings. This answer was honest, but instead of easing tension, it added more confusion. One council member whispered to another, "Did you hear that? They don't show stress. That's not normal." Another replied, "Maybe Earth has changed. Maybe they trained their people too much." The Earth leader noticed the whispers. He could feel the weight of the judgments, even though the words were spoken quietly. But he maintained his calm voice. "We are not hiding anything. We simply want to help build peace. Our behavior is not a tactic. It's who we are." The Empire's representatives stared at him carefully, trying to read his expressions. But the calmness, again, made understanding difficult. From the outside, the Earth leader looked like someone who had mastered emotional control. But inside, he was feeling many things: concern about being misunderstood, hope that the Empire would eventually see the truth, and a little sadness that their simple behavior was seen as something threatening. One member of the Earth team stepped forward, trying to help break the tension. She explained how humans on Earth had gone through difficult times in the past, how many people had learned to manage their emotions so they could rebuild their lives. Her voice trembled just a little, not from fear, but from sincerity. But the Empire wasn't used to people speaking softly like that. To them, soft voices sounded like hidden meaning. "Why does she speak so quietly?" a council member whispered. "Is she hiding something?" "She looks too composed," another added. "It's unsettling." The Earth team noticed the reactions, but they didn't react back. They simply listened, breathed, and stayed present. After a long pause, an older council member raised his hand to speak. He was one of the few who had spent time studying Earth before all the rumors began. He spoke slowly, choosing his words with care. "Perhaps we are misunderstanding their behavior. Calmness does not equal danger. Silence does not equal violence. Maybe we should try to understand them without assuming the worst." His voice carried a weight of wisdom that quieted the room for a moment. But even then, not everyone agreed. Another council member leaned forward and said, "But their calm is not normal by our standards. Our people express emotions clearly. When someone hides their emotions, it usually means they are preparing for something." This was a core part of the Empire's culture. They believed transparency meant safety. Loud expressions meant honesty. But Earth's people had grown different over time. They valued balance and patience, and their expressions were gentler, softer. The Earth team felt the cultural gap widening, but they did not let frustration show. Instead, they continued answering every question with patience. They described their training, their coping methods, their intentions. They shared small stories from their past to show they were ordinary humans, not mysterious beings. But each explanation was twisted slightly by the Empire's fear. If an Earth member said, "We stay calm to think better," the Empire heard. "We stay calm because we don't feel normal emotions." If someone said, "We practice breathing to manage stress," the Empire heard. "We have some strange ability." If someone spoke gently, the Empire thought, "They're controlling," their tone in a calculated way. By midday, the misunderstandings were so strong that even the Council began doubting their own interpretations. It felt like the Earth team was being judged not for what they did, but for what everyone imagined they might do. After the meeting ended, the Earth team walked through the palace corridors quietly. They didn't speak until they reached the outdoor garden, a peaceful place filled with soft light and glowing plants. Their leader finally sighed and said, "They don't see us clearly. They see the rumors instead." One member sat on a stone bench and looked at the sky. "We're trying, but everything we do becomes something strange to them." Another added, "Maybe they need time. Fear doesn't go away in one day." Their leader nodded. "We stay patient. We came here for peace, not for approval." Meanwhile, inside the council chamber, the Empire's representatives remained seated, discussing what they had seen. They don't react, one said. Don't get angry, another added. They don't raise their voices. A third pointed out. Then someone said the line, it would spread across the entire capital within hours. It's like they don't feel anything at all. This sentence traveled fast through corridors, across markets, into homes. By evening, everyone was saying it, but the truth was far simpler. The Earth team felt everything deeply. They just expressed it differently. They just breathed through difficulty instead of exploding. They just stayed steady instead of shaking. But the Empire wasn't ready to understand that yet. And so, the misunderstandings continued to grow, waiting for the next moment to turn even more dramatic in them. Days ahead. The sun rose slowly over the Empire's capital, painting the tall towers with soft gold light. But even the gentle morning glow could not ease the tension that had spread through the city overnight. The sentence spoken in the council chamber, "It's like they don't feel anything at all," had already become the newest rumor. And by morning, the rumor had doubled, then twisted, then turned into something even more dramatic. People in the streets whispered, "The Earth team has no emotions." Others said, "They trained themselves to shut off feelings." Some even claimed, "They are more machine than human." None of this was true, but the city was no longer listening to truth. It was listening to fear. Inside the palace, the Earth team stood near one of the large windows, watching the city wake up. They could see the distant crowds gathering again, talking, pointing, staring toward the palace like something dangerous was trapped inside it. But the Earth team didn't panic. They didn't lose patience. They just took slow breaths and stayed grounded. "We are being misunderstood more each day," one team member said quietly. Their leader nodded. He had dark circles under his eyes, from lack of sleep, not because he was afraid, but because he kept replaying yesterday's meeting in his mind, wondering what small thing they might do differently, so people would finally see them as normal humans. But misunderstanding is like fog. Even if you walk slowly and carefully, it still blocks the view until it chooses to lift. A sudden knock on the door pulled their attention away from the window. 2 Imperial guards entered. One of them kept his distance, as if standing too close might be dangerous. The other held a message tablet in his trembling hands. "The Council wants to meet again," he said. The Earth team followed the guards through the hallway. The guards walked quickly, as if wanting to finish their duty as fast as possible. As the team walked past them, the guards didn't make eye contact. They kept their eyes straight ahead, stiff and uneasy. The palace corridors were already filled with whispers. Servants stepped aside, lowering their voices as the Earth team passed. A few wouldn't even look at them. A pair of council assistants whispered too loudly. "They don't show emotions. That's why they're dangerous." They didn't even react yesterday, not a single outburst. But the Earth team wasn't emotionless. They simply didn't express emotions in a dramatic way. They felt hurt. They felt confused. They felt tired. But they carried those feelings inside, carefully, the way someone carries something fragile. When they entered the council chamber, the atmosphere felt heavier than the day before. The council members sat with straight backs, tense shoulders, and guarded expressions. It was clear they were preparing for something serious, maybe even something confrontational. The Earth team stood at the center, waiting patiently. The Empire's representative started speaking, his voice hard to read. "We received many reports from our citizens. They are afraid." The Earth leader listened calmly. "Afraid of what, exactly?" "Afraid of you." The representative answered. The words hung in the air like a cold stone dropping into still water. The Earth team did not react with shock or anger. They simply listened, breathing slowly. But that stillness meant as respect was again misinterpreted as a warning sign. A council member leaned forward and said, Your calm behavior makes everyone uneasy. It is not normal for people to stay so controlled. Another added, we don't know what you are thinking. You don't show reactions. The Earth leader took a gentle breath before replying. We learned to stay calm the hard way. We are not hiding emotions. We are managing them. But the council didn't understand. They couldn't understand. Their culture believed emotions should be expressed loudly and clearly. Otherwise, people became suspicious. One member raised her voice slightly. When someone doesn't show anger, it usually means they are waiting for the right moment to attack. The Earth team exchanged soft glances with each other. Not secret. Signals just simple human support. Seeing this, another council member said, "There." They're doing it again. They communicate silently. The Earth leader realized the misunderstanding had grown beyond simple explanation. Words were no longer enough. But he didn't give up. He stepped forward slightly and spoke with full honesty. We are here to bring peace. Not fear, not harm. But again, the calm voice worked against him. A council member whispered, he sounds too sure, too collected. Another murmured, maybe they trained themselves to hide all emotions. The Earth team felt the misunderstanding tightening around them like a rope. They didn't get angry, but there was a quiet sadness in their eyes. But even that sadness went unnoticed. After nearly an hour of questions and answers, the meeting ended with more confusion than before. As the Earth team walked out, the Palace News reporters crowded in the hallway. Cameras pointed at them from every direction. Microphones extended toward them like metal vines. One reporter said loudly, "Is it true you have no emotions?" Another shouted, "Are you trained to stay calm even under attack?" A third asked, "Do you feel fear at all?" The Earth team stayed respectful, but did not respond. The questions were twisted, impossible to answer in a way that wouldn't be misinterpreted. Their silence made the reporters even more excited. "They're ignoring us." One whispered, "They're studying us quietly." Another said, "They are unpredictable." "That makes them dangerous," a third added. The Earth team finally reached their rooms. Once the doors closed, the leader placed both hands on the table and lowered his head slightly. Not in frustration or anger, but in exhaustion. "They see monsters where there are none," he said softly. One member sat on the couch, rubbing her temples. "Every simple thing we do turns into something suspicious." Another added, "It's like trying to talk to someone who already decided what the answer should be." But even in their tiredness, they refused to blame the Empire. They understood fear. They had lived through fear back on Earth. Many of them had healed from it through long therapy and support. Their calmness wasn't coldness. It was survival. It was healing. Later that afternoon, the Empire arranged a guided tour of the capital. They hoped showing Earth's team around would help soften the tension. But the tour added more misunderstandings instead. As they walked through the markets, shopkeepers backed away. People pulled their children aside. A few citizens watched with wide eyes, whispering loudly enough to hear. They don't smile. They don't laugh. They walk like they're floating. Are they always this silent? The Earth team tried to smile gently at some people, but their smiles were mistaken for calculated movements. One moment, a small fruit vendor accidentally dropped a basket. The fruit scattered across the ground. The Earth team immediately knelt to help, picked them up. Their movements were soft, careful, kind, but someone watching whispered, "Why are they so controlled, even in small actions?" That's not normal. The fruit vendor thanked them shyly, but even he looked confused, unsure how to interpret the calm help. When evening came, the team returned to the palace. They gathered in the garden again, under the glowing blue plants that swayed gently in the light breeze. Their leader sat on a stone bench and looked at his team. We have to find a way to show them we're just humans. One member asked softly, "What more can we do?" We talk openly. We move naturally. We show respect. Another added, "Maybe we need to share something personal, something that shows our true feelings." But before they could decide, an imperial messenger rushed into the garden. His face was pale. "There's a problem," he said breathlessly. "The Empire believes Earth sent specialists who act emotionless on purpose. People think you are here to study weaknesses before an attack." The garden fell silent. The Earth team didn't move. Not because they were emotionless, but because they were shocked quietly, deeply, painfully. Their leader stood up slowly. "We came with peace." "I know," the messenger whispered. "But the Empire no longer believes peace looks like." Calm faces and steady voices. The Earth team realized the situation was reaching a point where even small misunderstandings could break into something much bigger, and what would come next would test not only their calmness, but their humanity itself. The Empire had spent so many weeks in fear that it had almost become normal for them. Every day someone whispered a new story about the Earth unit. Every day someone added a new detail, something strange, something eerie, something that made the unit seem less like humans and more like walking shadows. No one ever questioned where these stories came from. They simply repeated them until they became truth. That is how fear works. It grows quietly, and one day it becomes louder than facts. But fear never sits well with everyone. Somewhere, in the Empire's great capital, in a quiet corner of an old archive building, there worked a man who never liked rumors. He was a historian, not a powerful person, not someone who gave orders or commanded fleets. He simply believed that every story had another side. And when the rumors about the Earth unit grew out of control, he felt something inside him say, "This doesn't make sense." He had seen recordings of the unit's arrival. Yes, they moved with discipline. Yes, they looked calm in situations where others would panic. But he never saw anything that made them look dangerous. They looked tired sometimes, as if they had lived through storms that others could not see. That was not madness. That was experience. Still, no one wanted to hear such things. It was easier for the Empire to believe that Earth had sent unstable people trained only to fight. One quiet morning, the historian decided to investigate for himself, not out of curiosity, but because something in his heart told him that fear was clouding everyone's judgment. He began by requesting official files through the Empire's information system. At first, no one helped him. Some told him to leave it alone. Others warned him that digging into Earth's background could get him in trouble. But he kept going, slowly working his way through old records, communication logs, and scanned documents. The more he read, the more confused he became. Nothing supported the rumors. Nothing showed that the Earth team was violent. Instead, he found medical reports, service histories, international cooperation records, educational details, and peacekeeping mission summaries. The people Earth sent were not random fighters. They were some of Earth's most experienced individuals, people who had lived through disasters and conflicts and still chose to work for peace. They weren't chosen for their ability to harm. They were chosen for their ability to endure. And that was a huge difference. One file in particular made the historian sit back in his chair and stare at the screen for a long time. It was a psychological assessment of one of the unit members. The report described past trauma, losing family members in an accident, years of recovery, therapy sessions, resilience-building training. It talked about the person's emotional strength, their ability to stay calm under pressure, and their deep commitment to prevent others from suffering what they had gone through. Empire had been calling these people emotionless and cold. But the truth was the opposite. They were not emotionless. They simply carried too much emotion to let it spill. They stayed calm because they knew what panic could do to a situation. They stayed quiet because they understood the weight words. Could carry Dot, the historian, kept digging, finding more and more evidence that the rumors were completely wrong. One document explained that Earth selected these individuals because they were survivors. Another file explained they had spent years working in humanitarian operations, flood relief, evacuation missions, rescue operations in unstable regions. They had saved people, not destroyed them. For a moment, he felt ashamed on behalf of the Empire. How easily everyone had believed the worst. How quickly they had turned trauma survivors into monsters. He wondered how the Earth team must have felt standing in a foreign land where everyone saw them as living threats. No wonder they remained silent. Silence was sometimes a shield. The historian gathered all the documents he had found and walked straight to an Imperial Council member. It took him effort to enter the office. The guards tried to stop him, but he insisted, and eventually he was allowed in. The council member looked annoyed at first, ready to dismiss him. But the historian placed the files on the table and said only one sentence: "We have misunderstood everything." The council member frowned and began reading. Slowly, the expression on their face changed. The annoyance faded, replaced by confusion, then embarrassment, then something even deeper, regret. The more they read, the clearer the truth became. The Empire had not been dealing with dangerous soldiers. They had been dealing with wounded healers. The council member leaned back with a long exhale. Why didn't Earth say this clearly? They asked. The historian shook his head gently. They did, but we never listened. We were too afraid to hear. With the information finally in their hands, the council decided it was time to clear the misunderstanding. They arranged a private meeting, inviting the Earth unit to speak freely without feeling judged. The message was sent politely, not with fear or hostility this time, but with respect. And when the Earth team received the invitation, they looked surprised. For the first time since they arrived, someone was asking about their truth instead of making assumptions. The meeting took place in a small hall with warm lighting and simple chairs. No soldiers, no weapons, no strict protocols. It was designed to feel human, not official. When the Earth unit entered, the atmosphere was quiet, but not tense. The historian sat in the corner, watching everything unfold. The council member began softly. We want to understand you, not the rumors, not the fear. You. For a moment, no one from the Earth team spoke. They exchanged a few glances, as if deciding who should start. Finally, one of them stepped forward. Their voice was gentle, steady, and almost sad. We came here to prevent war, they said, not to frighten anyone. Their words flowed naturally, without drama. They explained their backgrounds, how each of them had lived through painful events that changed their lives forever. They explained how Earth believed that people who understood pain were the ones best suited to protect peace. Not because they were fearless, but because they knew the cost of fear. They spoke about their training, which focused not on aggression, but on calmness, conflict resolution, and emotional management. The Empire had mistaken their steady breathing for something unnatural. But in truth, they practiced mindfulness every day, taught by therapists and coaches to stay grounded. They talked about loss, healing, and the long road they had walked to rebuild their lives. They talked about wanting to make sure no one else on Earth or in the Empire had to go through what they had endured. The council members listened silently. Every word sank deeper into their hearts. The historian, sitting in the back, felt both relief and guilt. Relief that the truth was finally out. Guilt that it took so long. When the meeting ended, there was a long moment of stillness. No one rushed to speak, as if everyone needed a few seconds to absorb what they had learned. Finally, the council member stood and said, "We owe you an apology." The Earth team simply nodded. They weren't looking for apologies. They wanted understanding. The Empire realized that their fear had been a mirror. They saw danger because they expected danger. And in doing so, they had turned ordinary humans into imagined threats. But with the truth now clear, everything began to change. Officers who once looked at the Earth unit with suspicion now saw them with respect. Diplomats who once whispered rumors now spoke carefully. The historian walked home that night, under the soft glow of the Capitol lights, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. He knew that misunderstandings could lead to terrible consequences. But he also knew the truth had a quiet strength of its own. It didn't shout. It didn't threaten. It simply waited for someone willing to see it. And now, at last, the Empire was beginning to see Earth as it truly was, not as a source of danger, but as a world that had suffered, healed, and grown humble. Through experience, the stage was finally set for the last part of the story, where truth and peace would face each other openly, without fear in the middle. The atmosphere in the Empire changed slowly, like a heavy fog lifting after a long night. For weeks, fear had controlled everything. People whispered in the streets. Officers walked around tense, ready for something terrible to happen. Diplomats spoke carefully, afraid of saying the wrong thing. But now the truth had begun to spread, and the effect was almost unbelievable. The rumor that had once shaken the Empire was fading. What was replacing it was not just calm, it was understanding. But understanding isn't something that arrives suddenly. It doesn't appear in a moment. It grows step by step, through small actions, honest words, and genuine attempts to see each other clearly. That was the stage the Empire was entering now. For the first time since the Earth unit arrived, people no longer avoided them. They stared less. The whispers faded. Even the guards outside the diplomatic building greeted them with respectful nods instead of suspicious looks. The Earth team noticed the shift. They weren't people who smiled easily, but something in their eyes softened. They could sense that. The wall of fear around them was finally cracking. And for them, that meant their mission was moving in the right direction. They hadn't come to start a war. They came to stop one. Now they finally had a chance to show that the Empire arranged a larger meeting, one that would involve not just leaders, but representatives from different regions, departments, and communities. It was meant to be a moment of clarity, a moment where both sides could finally breathe without tension pressing down. The hall chosen for the gathering was grand but warm. Soft lights, calm colors, and seating arranged in a circle, so no one would feel above or below another dot when the Earth unit stepped inside. The room grew quiet, but it wasn't the sharp, fearful silence that used to follow them. It was the silence of respect and curiosity. People wanted to understand. They wanted to hear the truth directly from the humans they had misunderstood. The same council member from the earlier private meeting stood up and welcomed everyone. Their voice was steady, but carried a hint of nervousness. It was not easy to admit mistakes in front of so many people. But the Empire had decided that honesty was more important than pride. "We are here today," the council member said gently, "to correct our own misunderstanding and to build something better with Earth." The words felt heavy in the air, but they also felt right. They were the kind of words that began healing. The Earth team's leader stepped forward. They were calm as always, but their voice carried a warmth that hadn't been heard before. "We appreciate this chance," they said. "We didn't come here to frighten anyone. We came because we know what fear can do to worlds. We have seen it. We have lived through it." The hall listened quietly. The leader continued. "Earth chose use not because we are fearless, but because we understand fear better than most. We have lived through moments that nearly broke us. We have survived things that changed us. We learned to stay calm, not because we lack emotion, but because we have too much of it. And we don't want anyone else on our world or yours to go through what we experienced. People in the hall looked at one another. Some had tears in their eyes. They had spent so long believing the worst that hearing the truth felt overwhelming. One representative from the Empire raised a hand. "Why did you not tell us this earlier?" They asked openly, not in anger but in confusion. The Earth leader gave a small, gentle smile. "We tried," they said, "but fear speaks louder than calm words. We saw how tense things were when we arrived. We didn't want to push too hard. We hoped actions would speak for us, but they were misunderstood. We are human, and humans sometimes struggle to explain pain." The honesty in that response touched the room deeply. Not another representative leaned forward. "And now? What do you hope for now?" "Peace," the Earth leader replied without hesitation. "Real peace, not just agreements, not just signatures on paper, but a true understanding between our worlds. A relationship built on respect, not fear." The council members whispered among themselves. It was clear that Earth's intentions were genuine. The Empire had prepared its fleet in fear, had activated security systems, had even changed diplomatic protocols, all because of a misunderstanding. And now, hearing the truth directly from the Earth team, many felt embarrassed. But they also felt grateful that the situation had not escalated. After a long discussion, the council invited the historian, the man who started uncovering the truth, to speak. He stood slowly, looking both nervous and proud. He explained how he began his research, how the rumors made no sense to him, and how he found the files that showed the real story. He talked about the Earth unit's backgrounds, their trauma, their recovery, their strength, and their peaceful intentions. When he finished, the hall erupted into quiet applause. Not loud, not dramatic, just a soft, heartfelt appreciation. The Earth team looked at him with gratitude. He had not only helped them, he had helped both worlds step away from a path that could have led to something terrible. The meeting continued for hours. Questions were asked, doubts were cleared, personal stories were shared on both sides. The more everyone spoke, the more human the atmosphere became. The Empire representatives realized that they had been seeing Earth through the lens of old fears and historic assumptions. Earth, too, realized that their silence had sometimes created confusion. By the end of the day, something had changed that no negotiation document could achieve. Trust had started to grow. The Empire decided to make an official announcement to the public. They acknowledged the misunderstanding, explained the truth, and expressed their intention to work closely with Earth. The message spread quickly across the Empire's worlds. At first, people were shocked, then relieved, then curious. Many wanted to know more about Earth, not as a threat, but as a partner. The Earth team stayed on the capital planet for a while longer, working closely with Empire officials to draft new agreements. Not military agreements, not weapon sharing deals, but cooperation projects, education exchanges, medical programs, cultural understanding missions. They wanted the future to be shaped by the kind of empathy they had fought so hard to reclaim in their own lives. One evening, after a long day of meetings, the Earth team stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The lights below shone like stars, reflecting off the tall buildings. For the first time since arriving, they felt calm, not the disciplined calm they always maintained, but a natural, peaceful calm. The kind that comes when a heavy burden finally lifts. The historian joined them quietly. "You changed us," he said softly. The team leader looked at him. "You changed us too," they replied. "You saw the truth before anyone else. That made all the difference." The historian shook his head. "Maybe, but it was your honesty that opened our eyes." They stood there together for a moment, sharing the quiet. No fear, no tension, just the sense that something important had begun. Before leaving the Empire, the Earth team attended one final meeting. The entire council was present. This time, there was no formality, no stiff postures. The atmosphere felt almost friendly. The council member who had apologized earlier stood up once more. "We want you to know," they said, "that your visit will be remembered as one of the most important moments in our history. You showed us that strength is not loud. It is not aggressive. It is silent, patient, and rooted in compassion." The Earth leader bowed slightly. "And we learned from you too," they replied. "We learned that misunderstandings can happen even among advanced worlds. What matters is how we choose to fix them." After the meeting, the team prepared to return home. When their ship lifted off from the capital planet, the Empire sent a farewell message across their channels. A simple statement that would later be repeated across galaxies. Earth did not send warriors. Earth sent people who survived pain and still chose peace. That is a strength we respect. As the stars stretched past their ship's windows, the Earth team felt proud, not for being feared, but for being understood at last. And on the Empire side, people talked about Earth not with horror, but with admiration. The misunderstanding that once shook the Empire became a lesson shared for generations. That fear is powerful, but truth and empathy are stronger. And in that quiet realization, both worlds found the beginning of a peaceful future they never expected.